The following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order.
Why don't you go ahead and tell me the in-depth rules of a martial arts match and how it differs from a regular wrestling match?
He was on Baywatch with Hogan, and Ric Flair and Vader invaded the beach as bad guys. I fact-checked. I don't know this off the top of my head.
So he said, look, just don't mention this. And then that was obviously the first thing he did when he went out.
Hall says that they've seen Paige's wife with her skirt off, and that Fruitcake Piper will be wearing a skirt as well. But what's Rodman going to be wearing? Hogan says that he's going to make us wait, because when Rodman comes out, it all stops there. So Rodman's going to be wearing something pretty exciting. What do you think he's going to be wearing, Tyson? Let's talk about some good shit. A Wrestling Rewind.
The Retro Review. We go to WCW Uncensored.
And it starts off with an awkward video package that tells us that Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko are facing each other. It's a no DQ US title match. Glacier makes his WCW pay-per-view debut facing Mortis, ditto, and they rekindle their rivalry in a martial arts match.
Why don't you go ahead and tell me the in-depth rules of a martial arts match and how it differs from a regular wrestling match?
I think we should save that.
Okay.
All right. The Psychosis is facing Ultimo Dragon. Scotty Riggs versus Buff Bagwell in a strap match. Public Enemy versus Harlem Heat in a tornado match, of course. Prince Iaukea faces Rey Mysterio Jr. in a return match for the WCW TV title. And then we get Piper Team, which is Rowdy Piper, Jeff Jarrett, Steve Mongo McMichael, and Chris Benoit versus NWO Team, they didn't tell us at that time, versus WCW Team, which is the Giant, Lex Luger, and the Steiner Brothers. And it's all uncensored. And we go to Charleston, South Carolina, and this is the third annual Uncensored. We have Dusty, Shivani, and Heenan all on commentary. And Tony reveals that if Piper Team wins, Piper gets a cage match with Hogan at some point.
I can see that happening. That seems likely.
Dusty says that the decks are stacked against the NWO, and we need to expect the unexpected, if you will. And he wonders if the role Dennis Rodman is going to play is going to be a factor at all. And Tony reveals that if WCW Team wins, the NWO Team can't wrestle for, 3 years?
3 years they can't wrestle.
NWO Team can't wrestle for 3 years, and we'll have to give all of their titles back, even Hogan's. So we know the match outcome already.
That's what I was saying. Cage match, I could see that happening. NWO, your biggest draw, not being able to wrestle for 3 years, probably not going to happen.
Especially Hogan losing the title. I could buy all of that if Hogan wasn't in that. Heenan says that Hogan and the NWO have their backs against the wall. Bischoff's been suspended by the president of WCW. And Dennis Rodman.
To me that there was a president.
Yeah, I can't remember his name. Dennis Rodman being in the building is uncensored, and who knows what's going to happen. So the first match of the evening is Dean Malenko versus Eddie Guerrero in a no disqualification US title match. And the match starts off with Eddie and Malenko using their newfound intensity on each other. I think Eddie's already a heel at this point, and Malenko's just flirting with being a bad guy or a tweener or something. Malenko's cheered heavily, and Eddie is booed heavily. I'm not sure if the fans hate Eddie or just hate how Eddie's now a heel. You know, they've turned on him. And before the match gets really going, we have a commotion in the back. The camera takes us to a car area where Nash, Hall, and Master Six are kneeling next to someone. Master Six is holding a camera. A broken pool cue or a broken kendo stick or something is next to a man's head. Nash and Master Six yell for medical help. Hall says, "These Steiners are having bad luck lately." And we're left wondering whether or not that was Rick Steiner, because the cameraman that rushed to the scene sucks at his job and didn't even try to identify who it was. Later, it's confirmed that it was Rick Steiner by someone who wasn't on site at the time.
It was confirmed on commentary.
Good thing they went to the back with the camera to let us know on commentary who it was.
Well, he was out.
You could have walked around. He filmed the kendo stick. He got a close-up on the kendo stick.
Sure.
Back to the match. Malenko tosses Eddie out of the ring, then grabs the U.S. title belt and beats Guerrero with it. Eddie hit Malenko with a rock bottom. Then they cut to the back again at some point, and Rick is being loaded onto a gurney while the NWO team is still standing there. And we're back to the match. Eddie's kicking Dean's ass outside the ring. Eddie gets Malenko in a figure four. Eddie screams, "I'm going to break your leg if I have to." They fight out of the ring again. Eddie gets fucked up diving and getting thrown on top of the guardrail. It's the old guardrails that would actually cause pain instead of looking like a pillow. Eddie takes his singlets off. Did that inspire Kurt Angle, do you think?
No, couldn't be.
I don't know. Eddie hits a powerbomb for 2, and it was the first real big move, and it was huge when Dean kicked out. And both men do a sequence where they end up kicking each other in the balls. Malenko hits Eddie with a frog splash. Then he... Okay. Eddie... Malenko gets on the top rope, hits Eddie with a frog splash. He pops his head up with this big fucking grin on his face. Just, all smiles. He almost looks like a lizard.
Yeah, he was so proud of himself.
The ref starts counting, but just before the ref counts to 3, Dean pulls Eddie up and he makes this ooh, face. I rewound and watched this part at least 50 times, and I was laughing and dying each and every time. It was fucking hilarious. The ref is pissed off at Dean for this, and Dean's like, "Hey, it's no disqualification match. I do what I want." Dean goes for a powerbomb, but Eddie counters with a gorgeous head scissor takedown. Both men trade pins. Malenko hits a huge German suplex. Eddie hits a tornado DDT, then locks Malenko in a Texas cloverleaf. Then fucking Master 6 comes out with his goddamn camcorder. He takes the US title and spits on Eddie, who is forced to let go of the cloverleaf. Master 6 then tries to nail or throw the camcorder. Either way, it goes over Eddie's head and into the ring. Eddie manages to get the belt away from Master 6. He turns around, swings wildly like a madman in Dean's direction. Dean ducks the wild swing and then nails Eddie in the face with the camcorder 1, 2, 3. After the match, Malenko picks up the camcorder and is confused by its presence. Then he gives it to Eddie.
Yeah, that was a little weird.
Yeah.
Like, you just hit him with it. How
Right.
did you not know what it was? I think at even one point he was like, "Where did this come from?" Like, you just hit him with it. You know where it came from.
This was a great match. It was just ruined by the dumb fuck finish. No one's affiliated with the main event or the NWO, so I don't know why 6 has to keep poking around with this shit. Like, he didn't do anything with the TV title match, so it can't be that he wants to steal all the titles.
True. I thought it, I mean, yes, obviously it was a good match. I did think it went kind of long. And if you see the story that happened within the match, then it absolutely went long. The fact that, number 1, Rick Steiner got attacked. Number 2, an ambulance showed up to take him out of the building while the match is still going on. And then 6 also then has time to come out to ringside. So like there was a whole thing that happened during this match.
I think the Rick Steiner thing being interjected kind of took away from it. 6 definitely took away from it. I think that was the only reason it was a no DQ, is so he could be involved at the end and nothing else, because there was no DQ spots aside from a little deal with the belt from Malenko.
Right.
I was fine with that. I like the idea of a no disqualification match just being a regular match. Just, you don't follow the rules, but you don't necessarily have to get a chair every time or a table. You're just not worried about countouts and shit.
Yeah, you get to settle it. But yeah, it was definitely a good match. There was a little detail. Eddie's working on the leg, and then there was that moment where Dean Malenko, he's outside the ring and he like has to shake off the leg injury. I was like, man, that's good detail in selling. You don't get that nowadays. Now they just no-sell everything. Well, some of them will do it. Although there's going to be a moment where it completely got no-sold.
Fair enough. But we're back in the locker room with Mean Gene Okerlund. And before Gene can get concerned about Rick Steiner being assaulted in the back and rushed away in an ambulance, he has to shield a hotline first.
Of course. Got to get that out. $1.99 a minute. A minute. Dang, those pay-per call things were expensive.
They were, weren't they? Can you imagine paying premium for the WCW hotline? Not even some girl talking sweet to you. It's just, oh, well, Bret Hart's going to do this.
Like I said, he always teased it good. Someone from WCW is out. Find out on the hotline.
I didn't think that was a tease.
Well, you had to find out who
somebody's gone. Call us. Find out who. Why don't you just tell me?
No, gotta get you that $1.99 a minute.
At least the last one, there was somebody having lunch with the NWO. Who was it? This one's some guy left. If you want to know who it was, pay me.
Yeah, you gotta find out who it was.
So then Mean Gene switches to the main event, where we finally learn that NWO team is being represented by Hogan, the Outsiders, and Master Six. He did say Master Six. I'm not fucking that up. Gene briefly mentions Rick Steiner being taken out of commission before he brings Rowdy Roddy Piper in to say some shit. And Piper's miffed that he has to fight a whole bunch of guys just to get to Hogan in a cage. Piper says he doesn't ultimately need to do this main event to get Hogan in a cage, but he's doing it because he lives and eats metal and even has it in his hip. And Piper says Dennis Rodman wants to try Piper's kilt on. The only problem is he wants Piper in it.
Oh, that Piper.
Piper says that the Horsemen are supposed to be on his team, but Flair and Anderson are nowhere to be seen. And Piper asks if the Horsemen ride mares or studs. Piper says something about cloning Rodman and Hogan. Then Jarrett, Benoit, Mongo, and Deborah come in. Jarrett makes sure to look directly into the camera, do his little peace sign thing, then twirl in Piper's direction. It was quite remarkable. I had to rewind that a couple times. Like, what the fuck? That was the most unnatural movement. Piper says a bunch of shit, then says Gene told Piper he couldn't trust the Horsemen. Gene says, I just said that there was some dissension. I never said that I don't trust them. Jarrett says, you don't go wrestling up no more trouble, Mean Gene. 4 Horsemen are backing up Rowdy Roddy. We ain't marked men, Rowdy Roddy. It's Hogan, Hall, Nash. Those are the marked men. Jarrett promises to work as a unit and work with Piper. Then Mongo talks shit to Luger. Says he's coming after Hall and Nash for spray painting NWO on his back. Then Mongo is going to show Rodman a basketball player who the real icon of Chicago is. You got that basketball player? Piper then tells Benoit he needs some razzmatazz from him. Benoit says Piper is an icon because he makes good decisions. Now Piper loves the Horsemen. And then Jarrett does a routine with Piper where he shows him how to hold up the 4 fingers. And Piper almost messes up and holds up just 1 finger. Piper says, when you have all the answers, we change the questions. Have a nice day. Then he flaps his kilt. And then Gene mentions to Deborah that he would have talked to her, but she's not that important, I'm afraid. And Shivani wisely says, well, we don't need to talk to her. We just need to look at her from time to time.
Sure did.
And Shivani could have retired at that moment.
There was a little line from Piper when he's talking about the Horsemen. I forgot what he said about Chris Benoit. He said something about wine. But then he said, and then you got Deborah who's dating this guy, but she's married to him.
Yeah, he
Kind of
ran them
sums
all
it
down.
up. But yeah, he's like, she's dating him, but married to you. It's like, oh, you're just like outing Big Michael as a cuck. You just cucked him.
They basically called them all fags. You guys ride mares or studs? Psychosis and Ultimo Dragon faced each other, and this was really good. For some reason, both men wearing masks in this match just made it more special for me. I liked that Psychosis didn't know what the fuck to do after Dragon did a handstand on the turnbuckle. Tenay mentioned that Psychosis trained with Mysterio in Tijuana. And Dusty's like, oh, I'll train in Tijuana too. Psychosis did a guillotine leg drop from the ring to the floor, and it looked like it sucked.
Both his leg drops looked like they sucked.
Yeah. And Dragon did a acai moonsault on the outside. And when Psychosis goes back to the ring, Sonny Ono did some karate shit while the ref, Mark Curtis, is tending to the Dragon. Mark Curtis comes out. He asks Ono what the hell happened. Ono says Psychosis slipped, he thinks, even though he just karateed the shit out of him. Curtis tells Ono to stand somewhere else, and then Curtis walks away. Ono turns to the camera laughing and says, Sonny had to help Dragon real bit. Psychosis gets back in the ring and gets hit with another moonsault by Dragon, but it surprisingly gets a 2 count. Psychosis countered a Hurricane Rana with a sunset flip for 2. I thought that was a cool ass move. Then they do a reverse suplex spot off the top rope, and both men got all of it. Dragon ends up winning after hitting a running powerbomb, an ugly ass tornado DDT from the top rope, and a tiger suplex. Ono gives Psychosis one last kick and says to the camera, if Master 6 is the champion, they want him. They need a challenger for Dragon now. That'll be interesting.
Yes. Now, I think that was supposed to be a Hurricane Runner spot, and it didn't work out, so he changed it to that DDT.
I thought it was an arm drag.
Well, I remember he used to do that spinning Hurricane Runner from the top rope.
Oh, he already did that, though, didn't he?
No, he went for it, but he didn't get it.
Okay. Well, Mean Gene's back in the back. And after talking about the stupid hotline again, he talks to DDP. Gene talks about Macho Man, who doesn't seem to respect Diamond Dallas Page. And DDP says, the people know my name. Gene asks DDP if he's subbing for Steiner in the main event. DDP asks Macho Man, who's not there, if he can hear the crowd chanting his name. DDP says he's here because Savage won't acknowledge his previous challenges. So he challenges Savage again. And he also has the camera back up so he can get in close again while he does his little diamond cutter gesture. And it's worth noting that DDP is wearing one of his better shirts. And before the segment ends, Macho Man interrupts with Miss Elizabeth. Savage
Brother.
Savage apologizes for misjudging DDP. Page is the man. RESPECT. Then Savage said he was at the airport looking at nudie magazines and saw one of his old girlfriends, Pamela Anderson, on it. Then he does a callback to when he was on Baywatch.
Was that a true thing?
Yeah,
was he on Baywatch?
He was on Baywatch with Hogan, and Ric Flair and Vader invaded the beach as bad guys.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I fact checked. I don't know this off the top of my head.
Okay.
Macho says Cindy Crawford and Jenny McCarthy are in the magazine as well. And DDP points at Savage and says, don't you go there, bro. That's what dudes do. They say bro when they're pissed. Savage says, your wife is a centerfold, brother. Elizabeth holds up a centerfold. NWO paint is covering up the good bits. And it looks like DDP was also in the photos too. Savage calls DDP the man. Paige calls Savage a son of a bitch. Kimberly comes out crying. She's all covered up in NWO spray paint. DDP goes to console Kimberly. Then he gets blindsided by Savage. And man, Savage moved with the quickness because he was like on this platform standing.
Yes.
then he was on Paige as soon as he turned around. Savage rips off Paige's shirt and makes Kimberly watch. Elizabeth comes trotting with a black spray paint can. DDP gets NWO tagged onto his back while Savage calls him the man. Savage says he's going to pile drive DDP and then I'm going to pile drive you.
Yeah, that was the funniest part. Get up so I can pile drive you.
Kimberly dives onto her unconscious husband, sobbing and saying no. Savage looks around like he's trying to find something to pummel the two of them with. And he settles on painting Kimberly's back again. And Mean Gene pleads with Elizabeth to make Savage stop. Surprisingly, she tells Savage to stop so she can do it. And everybody stops, like, whoa. And then Savage holds Kimberly's head down while the once innocent, pure, and kind Miss Elizabeth paints NWO on Kimberly's back. Well, she tried to, because she must have sucked at it, because she immediately gave the can back to Savage, who spent extra time finishing the job.
Yeah, she did one letter.
Elizabeth then tells Kimberly she should be thrilled and that the NWO loves her, which implies that the entire NWO has that magazine on a table while they stand in a circle and just jerk off to it.
Give it some tributes.
Yes. Savage says DDP's the man and he likes him. NWO for life. Savage says Kimberly likes him too. And we're left with Kimberly sobbing over a still unconscious Paige.
Entertaining segment. And that was the first time they actually acknowledged Kimberly and DDP being married. So I watched when Savage passed away, unfortunately, DDP did a video, it's on YouTube, where he recalls this specific feud with Macho Man. So he said when they were going over the promo stuff, he's like, look, just don't mention this. And then that was obviously the first thing he did when he went out there. So that's why he's like, you son of a bitch. Because, yeah, he told him, let's just leave that out, please. But, yeah, he went right for it.
Yeah, it was good stuff. I do remember he said that Savage decided to let Paige go over. I think I'm going to take the diamond cutter tonight. And they're like, Paige, do you understand what that means? What an honor that is?
Like, you don't get it?
I hope we get to see Paige and Savage, though. Oh, yeah, we do. That's the next pay-per-view. Good deal. So Mortis faced Glacier in the martial arts match.
All right. So, yeah, go ahead and lay out the rules of the martial arts match and how it differs from a regular match.
Well, this one starts off with fancy costumes that don't age well.
I don't know what the hell Glacier was wearing. He looked like a dollar store Sub-Zero.
I thought Mortis had a really cool look.
He did. And they were like, is he alive? Don't you see him walking?
I think, yeah, Glacier, the plastic samurai helmet he had, and when he talked, he was, oh, you get over here now. Good golly. Kick your ass all the way to Mayberry with my spin kick.
He did have a good spin kick, though.
It was really slow, though, and like rehearsed. Mortis wrestled like an old school heel instead of an otherworldly being looking to vanquish an ancient foe. That was my only criticism. I did like how Glacier used karate kicks to set up wrestling moves. It's very unique. And Glacier chased James Mitchell around the ring, and Mortis hit Glacier with the nastiest of baseball slide I've ever seen. And Mortis did a buckshot lariat. Glacier kept going for a top rope chop and failing. And then he went for a super kick on Mortis, but Mortis used the ref as a shield, and Mortis hit Glacier with his super kick instead. Mortis then tells James Mitchell to hold Glacier so he can super kick him again. Glacier manages to duck out of the way. Mortis barely stops from hitting Mitchell. Glacier uses the distraction to nail Mortis with a super kick 1, 2, 3. And then Glacier yells at Mitchell after the match, and Mortis beats Glacier up with his stick. And then Mitchell calls for another man to come out, and this big-ass guy in a mask comes out, shoves the ref to the side, takes off the mask, and it's Adam Bomb from the WWF. And Glacier gets his ass kicked by Adam Bomb and Mortis. Adam Bomb hits Glacier with a rock bottom. Cool.
Now, if memory serves me correctly, Mortis turns into Canyon, right?
Yeah.
And wasn't his gimmick that he was the innovator of offense? Or was that RVD?
No, Canyon was the innovator of offense.
Well, how accurate is that? This guy clearly has a deep arsenal.
Oh, yeah. He was very good.
Maybe the deepest arsenal in WCW. He did the buckshot lariat. He did a famouser.
I missed the famouser.
Yeah, he did a famouser and they went crazy. I've never seen that before.
I remember this clearly because when Glacier debuted, I was a fan. But then when Mortis debuted, I immediately became like Glacier who? Wrath, yeah. But I enjoyed this for Mortis. I thought taking the mask off of him kind of ruined it because he was like, oh no, I'm really Kenny Canyon.
I don't know. Yeah. His moveset. He was the innovator of offense.
Well, then they play a video of how the NWO and Steiners are feuding. It's a black and white video. We see one car following another. Then the car in pursuit rear ends the other car. Scott Steiner sticks his head out, and everyone's yelling. Rick is sticking his head out of the window and flailing his hat about. Then the Steiners drive into a hill and flip their car over. The NWO stop laughing immediately.
It got serious.
Yeah, so they're following, they're laughing. Hey, Rick and Scott, and they rear end them. Steiners are yelling, sticking their hands out. Oh, we'll get you, NWO guys. I think they even sideswiped them once. And then they flip the car over and it just stops. And then they tell Dumbfuck 6 to stop recording 2 or 3 times. He didn't. And then the NWO just decided to leave and not help the Steiners. And after Shivani says after that the Steiners, they could have pressed charges, but they wanted to settle it in the ring instead. Like
nice of them. So nice of them because, you know.
That's how it started, you know.
Yeah, they could have gotten in some real trouble there if they wanted to report that.
Buff Bagwell faced Scotty Riggs in a strap match, and Buff comes out saying he doesn't care if he wins. He just wants to beat on Riggs. And Riggs comes out with his American Males theme still, and the strap. He takes off his jacket and then runs to the ring. Bagwell bails to the outside, questioning if the strap Riggs is holding is regulation. And then Riggs whips Bagwell with the strap before the ref can lock him in it. And finally, they're tied together, and Bagwell gets an early advantage. And they basically just whip the shit out of each other with the strap. Of course, Bagwell gets crotched. Then he stops the match to say how much he loves himself into the camera. Then he makes Riggs do the American Males clap. And then he gets kicked in the dick. And Buff inexplicably goes for a cover. Then he gets mad at the referee, Randy Anderson, for not counting the pin. Then they do the deal where Buff pushes him, and then he gets backed in the corner like a bitch. Riggs gets backdropped out of the ring.
Whoa, hold on. There's a very important spot there. When the ref was backing him down, he was yelling, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry." And then he looks at the camera and says, "I'm not sorry." He got bitched. And then he was like, "I'm not sorry."
Well, Riggs ended up getting backdropped out of the ring, and his neck gets wrapped up in the strap. And Bagwell starts to hang Riggs until he stops moving. Then Bagwell drags the unconscious Riggs into the middle of the ring and touches all four corners for the win. I thought it was a good match. This one went a little long for me. The finish was good. I thought the whole talking in the camera shit from Bagwell got old.
I like that part of it. And then
Clearly.
he kept stopping and posing. That's his character. He's so into himself. Or what did he say? It's not possible for someone to love myself more than me.
I love myself or something.
Yeah. So yeah, that was his little gimmick.
Oh, good for him. He won.
Finally.
The NWO teams in the back. Hogan, Hall, Nash, and Savage are there. Hall, Nash, and Hogan put over Rodman. Savage is thumbing intently through the magazine Kimberly's in. Hogan brings Kimberly up. Savage grins like a child. Says he has another notch in his belt because that's what they're there for. Hogan then says Nash was going to get in there, but Hogan had to explain that they're all the same size laying down. Hall says, "You didn't just say that." Hogan says, "I did. And when the NWO gets done tonight at Uncensored, everyone's going to be laying down." Hall guarantees victory. Nash says that they're as bad as they want to be with Rodney. He's trying to be cool, but he's like really corny. He seems drunk too. Hall tells his mom to look at him now. Nash says he ain't mad at WCW or Piper's crew. Hogan says they're just going to beat him up. Savage says, "Get over it." Hogan says he has a surprise. Apparently Hogan initiated Rodman into the NWO, but ended up learning a few things from Rodman instead, like butt stuff. And Hogan's dying to show those new things to the rest of the NWO. Savage is so excited about it, he drops the magazine. And then Hall, this went on a while. Hall says that they've seen Paige's wife with her skirt off, and that Fruitcake Piper will be wearing a skirt as well. But what's Rodman going to be wearing? Hogan says that he's going to make us wait, because when Rodman comes out, it all stops there. So Rodman's going to be wearing something pretty exciting. What do you think he's going to be wearing, Tyson?
I don't know, but they were teasing that it could be a dress or it could be an
Iron Man suit. It could be fucking anything. It's going to be awesome, though, and it's going to stop the match because of its awesomeness. That's what Hogan just promised us right there.
Well, it's Dennis Rodman. Never know what he's going to wear.
There you go. Savage asks if it's going to be a miracle bra. Hogan just says no. Savage says, "Woo!" And Hogan says Kimberly doesn't need one of those either. Hall implies Kimberly's tits are fake. Nash says no matter what happens, they're winning tonight, and they're going to be NWO for life. NWO leave. Savage makes sure to take his magazine with him.
I forgot my magazine.
God damn it. That was awful.
Yeah, it wasn't their best stuff.
I think this is one of the worst attributes with WCW. They allow the top talent to improvise or go off the cuff, but they don't ever fucking say shit. They just ramble.
Yeah, just go out there for 5 minutes and cut a segment. It was a little low to me, volume-wise, especially the Hogan parts. It was like he was just talking. He wasn't like doing an animated promo. He was just like having a conversation.
Well, that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to do some inside shit and trying to be too clever. It's just awful.
Yeah, it's like, I'm going to have to turn the captions on. I can't hear shit.
I mean, say what you want about the WWF or E, but when they improvise, at least there's a thread of narration that they go by.
Yeah.
All right. Harlem Heat face Public Enemy. Tornado tag match. Of course, these lazy, uninteresting fucks need to wrestle in a tornado match. And I hoped at the time that Booker and Stevie Ray just beat the piss out of Rocco Rock for wearing the goddamn do-rag. I was into it when Heat started the match, just whooping the shit out of these dumpy, pasty fucks. And then Heat had to start selling. Sherry got involved and thankfully punched Rocco right in the dick. And she choked him too and looked like she was possessed by the devil doing it. She choked him with like microphone cords or shit. She was all over the place. She's what Mae Young tried to be at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Sherry goes to get Rocco with a trash can. Rocco ducks. She hits Stevie right in the face. Stevie doesn't miss a beat, continues like nothing happened. Even shrugs Sherry off. But later, Stevie holds Rocco again so Sherry can whoop on him. It was marvelous. It's just like a little moment. But later on in the match, Sherry gets Stevie with the trash can again, and Johnny Grunge sandwiches Sherry on the guardrail and puts Stevie through a table with Rocco. So that wasn't marvelous. And Jared and Mongo came out all of a sudden. Mongo hits Rocco with the Halliburton attaché case. Booker hits the Harlem Hangover 1, 2, 3. After the match, Stevie, being a gentleman, goes to help Sherry. And Stevie and Booker almost whooped the fuck out of the nerdiest fan I've ever seen. I wish one of them would have slapped him.
Well, I thought this was a pretty fun match. Dusty was like out of control during this match. He's got a commode! He's got a commode! He just like lost his shit when I think it was Stevie got hit with a trash can. He lost his shit. It reminds me of me and my brother. Like, what? Why does that remind you of you and your brother? I think he amplified the craziness of this match. Like, he was just overreacting to everything. But aside from that, it was a Public Enemy match, so we can't go too far with it.
Well, I found this match really fucking offensive. Harlem Heat had to demean themselves by wrestling Public Enemy in this garbage match because these fucking untalented, useless fucks can't do anything else. I used to lump the Nasty Boys in with them, but I've been insulting the Nasty Boys for like 20 plus years. They know how to wrestle. They know how to tell a story. They just get lumped in the street fight matches. These two useless wastes of sperm can only have a wrestling match if there's a table or a garbage can or something that's going to divert the audience's attention away from their fucking useless wrestling. It took Harlem Heat longer than 5 minutes to beat these fuckers. That's offensive. Look at Booker, look at Stevie, look at Public Enemy. Enough fucking said. And why the fuck does Harlem Heat need the 4 fucking horsemen to beat Public Enemy?
I don't know. They seem to be protected for some reason.
I don't get
Enemy,
it.
that is. And they keep winning for some reason. Like
I don't get that either.
Like they won that last match with the Barbarian
Faces of Fear and Harlem Heat. They have a win over Harlem Heat. Think about that.
Yeah.
These 2 fucking garbage men have a win over Harlem Heat. Come on. Stupid. Aside from that, it was a good match.
Yeah, I thought it was entertaining, especially Dusty's like overreacting to everything.
I liked Sherry. Aside from that, I wanted to throw a brick at my TV. Like, Johnny Grunge, this fat fucking piece of shit, is wailing on Stevie, who's, you know, a whole foot taller than him and in shape and muscular and looks like he's killed a man in real life.
Fair enough.
Like Stephen Ray, whatever his real last name is, has taken a real man's life. Not Stevie Ray, the Harlem Heat guy. And then you got Johnny Grunge. Well, you want fries with that?
It definitely shouldn't be wrestling.
And Rocco Rock, don't get me started.
Is that the blonde one?
No, Johnny Grunge is the blonde. Rocco Rock's the one with the do-rag.
Okay. Enough said.
Yep. So Mean Gene's in the back again. WCW team wins. They get all the belts. NWO team wins. They get free reign on WCW TV programming or something.
They get a title shot at any point of their choosing, which they already have the world title, and Six has the cruiserweight title, so not much more they can.
They have the tag titles too.
Yeah, so not much more they can really take, but that's their stipulation.
All right. Scott Steiner, Luger, and Giant enter, and Gene wants to know about Rick. Scott says that was Rick's first ambulance ride, and he didn't like it one bit. Steiner didn't need any more incentives for this match, but he got them anyway. Piper team better stay out of his way. Oakland wants to know what Giant is thinking as a former NWO team member. Giant says it's time for Giant to do a little spring cleaning. Giant vows to clean up WCW. He says he's gotten to know Rick, who's a hard-headed, hard-bodied man. Didn't sound quite right. A man that can get hit by a Mack truck and still chew the tires off, even though a pull cue clearly took him out. and sent him away in an ambulance. Giant says Rick is a mean four-legged dog that was taken out in an ambulance. See? Now you've got his brother, his blood, his best friend. We're going to be so dizzy from watching all the suplexing going on. And when I get in the ring, I'm going to choke slam left and right. And the total package, well, he can speak for himself. He's got it all. It's time to do some racking. It's time to do some choke slamming. It's time to do some suplexing. Oakland says, it's just the three of you versus 8 men. He said that to Luger. Luger says, this isn't just a wrestling match. This is about society. NWO team has been plaguing the WCW with their anti-establishment bullshit. It disgraces the legends and titles that make up our great sport. Rick Steiner is with us in spirit. The adversity makes the bond greater. We can talk all we want. Now it's time for action. And action is what's going to happen. Mean Gene says he's concerned about WCW's chances with the stoniest face in the world.
Well, they're down a man.
Yeah, but he could have at least looked concerned. I really am concerned about their chances. Rey Mysterio Jr. faced Prince Iaukea for the WCW TV title. And we find out that it's a 15-minute time limit from the normal 10 minutes the TV title matches have. The TV title is being defended on the pay-per-view as well.
Yep, just like last time.
And this was a solid match. Just seemed kind of uneventful, though. At one point, the fans sounded like they were chanting boring. At another point, Rey and Iaukea scissor. And then the time expired with no suspense whatsoever. And everyone was pissed. Then Rey grabbed the microphone, says, hey, I'm a challenge to you. I think I deserve more time. Iaukea thinks for a second. He says, you know what? You're right. You deserve more time. This is uncensored. There has to be a winner. Bell rings. Everybody wondering how much extra time there is. Both men get another boring chant in overtime. Iaukea wins out of nowhere, countering Rey's Hurricane Rana with the sunset flip. So you use Psychosis's move.
This was a hard match to get through.
It was, man. The first one was so good, though.
It was. I don't know what it was about this match. It just was hard to get through.
Yeah. Well, they did a Spring Stampede ad. And 4 horsemen are dressed up like cowboys. And Flair's part was really badly dubbed.
Was he even there? Or was that the CGI stuff?
Well, I don't think they had CGI. Or at least not good CGI.
It was starting around that time. They had those movies that clearly had... Well, no, you're right. Because they used to use animatronics.
I think they were all talking. And then Flair came up and said, I spent $1,500 and been disrespected. And they had to dub over it. Well, Mike Buffer does the announcing. And he says how important the match is to wrestling's present and future landscape. And Buffer then goes over the rules and stipulations. Did you write them down?
I didn't, but the first round, it's 5 minutes. And then 2 minutes, 2 minutes. And then the final round is no limit, whatever that means.
The fans seem to be pro WCW and Piper, not so much NWO. And Piper team, Buffer fucked up and called them Team Piper like an idiot. Who would think to call it Team Piper? It's Piper team. Benoit, Hall, and Giant start off. I guess it's like War Games with elimination rules or something. I didn't really listen to Buffer when he went over them.
He kept saying last man standing wins. Last man standing, like singular. But then he said you get eliminated when you're thrown over the top, pinfall, or submission. So those are your outs.
Well, Benoit and Hall start off hot while Giant slowly walks to the ring. Giant finally gets to the ring and he lays out Benoit and Hall, so there's going to be no alliances. This is war. Giant whoops the fuck out of Benoit and Hall for almost 5 minutes straight. Giant hits Benoit with a choke slam. Hall breaks up the pin like a dumbass. And Giant gets eliminated diving over the top rope because that's a rule.
It sure is.
Jarrett comes out next for Piper team. Savage comes out for NWO team. Luger comes out for WCW team. I would have tried to wait to the next round if I could have, since they were down a member. That was just me. Mongo comes storming out for Piper team. He tells the cameraman to move. And Nash comes out for NWO team. Steiner, of course, comes out for WCW team. And Steiner runs to the ring. He immediately goes after Chris Benoit. And Steiner does a tilt-a-whirl slam to Jarrett. And Hall kicks Steiner from behind to initiate combat. So, to clarify, Steiner, who just saw his brother taken out by the NWO, immediately goes after Chris Benoit and Jeff Jarrett. And the NWO had to initiate combat with him.
Yep. He was focused on winning.
Hall tried to get Jarrett with the Razor's Edge twice and failed. And Jarrett ended up getting dumped over the top rope by Nash. And Mongo's dumped over the top rope by Hall. Piper comes out for WCW team. And Steiner got eliminated. And Buff announces Piper's name for the second time. And out comes Dennis Rodman and Hollywood Hogan. Now remember, Hall said that we've seen Paige's wife with her skirt off. And that Fruitcake Piper will be wearing a skirt to the match. What's Dennis Rodman going to be wearing? And Hogan said he's going to make us wait because when Rodman comes out, it all stops there. So Rodman comes out and he's wearing a leather jacket with a large fuzzy bucket hat that says Hollywood. There's absolutely nothing unique about this appearance.
Yeah, they overhyped it. But he had the hat. The hat was there.
Everyone fights while Hogan poses with Rodman on the ring floor with the belt. Piper and Hogan finally get their hands on each other. Hogan tries to run through the crowd. Piper ends up biting his face. Hogan throws Piper over the top rope as Rodman was holding the rope down. Piper goes after Rodman, but the whole mess of security guards standing around just hold him back. And Hogan and Piper start fighting again. Benoit gets razor's edged, and I have no idea who's still in this fucking match at this point. Benoit ends up going over the top rope. I guess everyone in the NWO is against Luger now. Piper's still trying to get his hands on Rodman. Hogan pulls Rodman to the apron so he can pose with the NWO guys who aren't stomping on Luger. And then the NWO huddle. They break by doing the NWO finger kiss thing. Nash goes to powerbomb Luger, but Luger dumps Nash on his ass. Luger takes out Hogan with a clothesline. Decks Hall with a clothesline. Savage is the next one to eat a clothesline. Hogan gets a second one for good measure, so does Hall. And Luger gets Savage in a torture rack. So Savage is eliminated immediately. And then Luger dumps Nash over the top rope. Luger gets Hall in a torture rack, so Hall's eliminated. And no one even tries to fight out of the rack. It's like the most protected finishing move ever.
It sure is. Once you get in that rack, you're done.
Yeah, you're done immediately. And now it's Luger and Hogan. Luger starts beating the fuck out of Hogan. And then he gets Hogan in the rack. But Nash is trying to get in the ring, so the ref is distracted. Rodman hands Savage a can of spray paint. They do the handoff by pretending to hug. And they did a prison hug. Fucking Savage. Savage spray paints Luger in the face while he's trolling Hogan in the rack for some reason. The spray in Luger's eyes was so intense, Hogan falls on him 1, 2, 3. And then Rodman paintbrushes Luger in the face with fake slaps. And I think Luger gets spray painted again.
Yes.
NWO do the hand kiss thing and walk off. Shivani, Heenan, and Dusty start to sign us off. But then from the rafters, carrying his trusty baseball bat, drops Sting. Sting gets the biggest pop of the night. Hall and Nash go after Sting and get their asses kicked because Sting has a fucking baseball bat. Savage gets it too. And then Sting picks up Savage, whispers something, and nails Savage with the Scorpion Death Drop. Then he grabs Hall and Nash and does the same to them. Sting then grabs his bat. Hogan's making mean faces in the entrance ramp while Robin rubs his shoulders. Then Sting slowly turns and he points at Hogan. Hogan's scared now, but Robin gets him to focus and put his mean face back on. Hogan screams at Sting to put the bat down, so Sting does. Then Hogan schemes with Rodman. Then they get to the ring. And Sting turns his back on Hogan specifically and signals, "What are you waiting for?" Hogan gets in the ring, tries to clock Sting. Sting blocks it, and it's all over for Hogan. Hogan gets the Scorpion Death Drop, and we have to say goodnight. So much shit to get to that awesome moment.
Yes. Now, here comes the question. Why wouldn't Sting be the fourth member of Team WCW if he was going to help them anyway?
He didn't help him.
He did help him.
No, he didn't.
He attacked the NWO. Well, okay. But you know, him and Luger have that history.
Yeah, Luger's the reason why he's Sting right now. Luger not trusting Sting and automatically assuming that Sting was Team NWO is the reason why Sting is in exile right now.
Right, but I saw it as him helping Luger.
No, I saw it as him attacking the NWO. Luger was already defeated. He was already violated. And he was already attacked.
Well, he's coming from the top of the rafters. You get there when he gets there.
No, I think Sting was coming back to reclaim his dominance.
Well, he did. And prior to that, Luger took out the whole NWO himself, too.
He did.
almost. Sans one foe, but he did a pretty good job. You know, WCW has that thing in them where one person will take out
An entire army.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I like it. It's
Well, that made sense. It looked like Luger was down. He had one last bit of strength. He got everybody by surprise. And he just started racking people real quick. I guess it's a quick enough finisher that.
Yeah, they couldn't even have time to help because they were tapping out so fast.
Right. And the ones that weren't tapping out, he was just dumping quickly out of the ring. So it wasn't like when Hogan fought off the entire Dungeon of Doom.
That was great.
Well, our next pay-per-view for WCW is Spring Stampede. The main event is DDP versus Savage. So we're going to have to wait for Hogan and Sting. I think that's Starrcade. So we got a while to go. But our next pay-per-view is WrestleMania 17.
Getting up there.
Yeah, we are. And that features The Rock and Stone Cold in a no disqualification match for the WWF. They love their no DQ matches. Undertaker faces Triple H. And we get a gimmick battle royal. God only knows who. We get Edge, Hardys, and Dudley's 2. And this is a TLC match.
It's here.
Shane McMahon versus Mr. McMahon in a street fight. So it only took 17 years for Mr. McMahon to get in the ring. We have Kurt Angle versus Chris Benoit, which should be a banger. We have Chris Jericho versus William Regal, which I expect to be a good match.
Pretty good lineup. But that does it for our retro segment of the review. Overall, I would say it's a pretty good pay-per-view. There's some hokiness to it, of course, but overall it's pretty good. WCW, outside of Sold Out, they've all been pretty good.
Yeah, I think it's because it's newer, fresher faces. Because with the WWF stuff, I don't know, it just seems like everybody kind of lingers. You're familiar with the story and what led to get to where they are now. Right. But with WCW, it's a little bit more foreign, at least for me.
Yeah, you got people showing up, like Glacier. Apparently, he's already been on TV for months. This was his pay-per-view debut. I remember him, too. All those vignettes. They kept showing his little eye. That was his thing, show the eye.
I just remember him doing the karate with the snow for a long-ass time.
Oh, yeah, the snow, too.
I also remember Coach Buzz Stern.
Well, there's a guy who's going to be coming out that's going to end Glacier's career, pretty much. And by that, I mean, you know, he will never be taken serious after that match, and that would be Goldberg. When he has a match against Goldberg, you know he's a bust at that point.
Isn't Ernest Miller coming soon, too?
Oh, yeah. The cat. As long as he gets that dancing going on. You think we see the dance on the pay-per-view? I hope so. It's one of my favorites, just because of the dance.
Yeah, I know.
Not his wrestling. He'd stick his lips out. Not really doing anything.
Apparently, he's a bad wrestler.
You don't say. He's a bad dancer, too. So he's trying to be James Brown. But obviously, he couldn't do it to that level.
Yeah, he teamed with Glacier. Good deal. So he's coming.
There you go. But anyway, on that note, I guess, if you agree with anything, let us know in the comments. If you disagree with anything, let us know in the comments. Don't forget to hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Follow us on the social medias. Follow us on the audio only. And until next time, top guys